Hey everybody, my name is Adam Greenfader, and I'm really proud to say we'll be launching in September Why Puerto Rico Now. Why Puerto Rico Now is a book about Puerto Rico, its economic history from the past, the present, and the future, most importantly. I often get asked, why did I write the book? I want to help Puerto Rico, and I think that when we look at Puerto Rico's economy and we understand really why things are the way they are, it can help us plan better for the future. And so in Why Puerto Rico Now, we take a look at Puerto Rico from 1898, when the Spanish and the Americans changed possession of the island, and some of the really key factors like the new zoning laws, the tax incentives, and the debt that Puerto Rico had. Puerto Rico in 1917 was the largest municipal bond offering in the history of the United States. Imagine that. And that debt and the use of debt has been something that Puerto Rico has relied on for its entire history. We look at the crisis in Puerto Rico, we look at the bankruptcy, and we kind of analyze, why that happened and what are the things that we need to do in the future to make sure that doesn't happen again. And basically, it's about creating new revenue streams. The majority of the book, Why Puerto Rico Now, is about the future, and it's about thinking about how we can make our island more resilient and how we can make Puerto Rico a better place to live for all the thousands of people that are coming here. We look at the technologies like blockchain. We look at the way we can use new innovative financing sources like PACE financing. As climate change is showing us that the seas are rising, and we live on an island, even if you live in New York or Los Angeles, we're all kind of on the water. 90% of the world's real estate values are on coasts. So this is an issue that affects Puerto Rico, but it also affects everywhere else on the water. And when I was in the Netherlands recently talking to the water ambassador, Henk Ovik, who actually has the title of water ambassador, and he was saying, Adam, we have had water laws since the year 1000, right? So the Dutch, who are literally built underwater, have figured out how to survive. And his first statement to me was, Adam, we cannot try to block water. We have to work with it. We have to let it in, and we have to channel it. And so something that we've been very active with in the Caribbean as well as Puerto Rico is to create developments that use the water to their benefit. And if we start designing where the coasts are not necessarily our enemies, but they're our friends, we might be able to find new solutions that are more eco-friendly and more resilient for everybody else. If you're interested in these changes and making Puerto Rico a better place, please buy Why Puerto Rico Now. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm here with Adam Greenfader, and we are new to Puerto Rico, PR consultants. We've been here about 4.5 years. We love to cheerlead Puerto Rico on this channel, but Adam is actually the original and far more knowledgeable cheerleader of Puerto Rico. You've been doing this for a long time, and so we're just going to have a conversation today. Adam's got a new book, and I watched you give a presentation yesterday that was impressive. I told you afterwards, kind of sort of half jokingly, that, hey, I'm all in, I'm going to invest here a little bit because of what you said. But really, I think the whole room felt that. It was, they shouldn't have had you go first because you were a tough act to follow. But it was great. It was really a great conversation. So you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about your story and some of the things that you mentioned yesterday, how you got here and how long you've been at it? And,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's an amazing experience, and I've been in Puerto Rico for 25 years. And married a Puerto Rican woman, raised my 2 kids here, went to school, and really fell in love with the island. Puerto Rico 2.0 now with groups like yourself, Robbie, coming in and really wanting to make a change on the island. It's important. I mean, the reason I decided to come down and be with you guys is you can feel the passion. You guys have really a deep-seated love for the island, for where you are, wanting to help and really make a difference. And I think that today we need more people like that in Puerto Rico. I mean, I think that, your group and some of the other groups that are here have, obviously talked about making money and all the great opportunities that are here. But you've also had this underlying kind of theme, which is, we're here to make some money, but we're also here to give.
Yeah, hopefully we're leading with a giving hand. That's a theme of kind of the network that we're involved with, for sure. That's where the heart is, right? And that's make some money along the way,
right.
Leave the island better than we found it. Hopefully create a whole bunch of jobs that are high paying.
And I see it. I mean, I see your WhatsApp chats. We talked about it today. I see you guys using local people whenever and every time you can. I see that the communications, with architects, engineers, landscapers, roof people. I mean, you are in Puerto Rico, you're creating a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
It's a reality, right? So there's money coming in, jobs are being created,
Yeah.
and lives are being changed for the better. And so kind of the reason I wrote the book was I also want to help Puerto Rico in my way to be a better place by bringing people like yourselves to the island, right? I mean, I know that Puerto Rico is in the midst of this great change. There's a huge resurgence going on, and we get together with like-minded people, and there's no stopping the island.
I think you're right. I mean, so every project that we've been involved with on the island up to date, we've never once done something where we're not partnering with someone local, right? Like, so we're hiring local contractors, we're using local counsel. We came here, and the way that we started our investing thesis was to invite locals to tell us about their projects and invite us in. So, and the way we did it is we met a bunch of people, and when they would invite us in, if they were going to put their money in, we would go in with them. And it was that easy, right? Like, it was, if you're putting your money where your mouth is, we'll go in with you. We're like-minded. We want to be here, and we met some other people that didn't want to put their money where their mouth was, and we didn't end up doing those projects. But I think that was a good way to get started on the island, because it is difficult finding information about comps and history of neighborhoods and things like that you would see back home in the States that you don't have here. You kind of spoke about that a little bit yesterday, and maybe you talk about that in the book, how we're going to leapfrog some technology and stuff like that even.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that your concerns and many concerns of people who come to Puerto Rico is, where's the information? Why isn't it like the same way that we do it back home?
Yeah.
And there's historical reasons for it. So in the book, I have 3 chapters, 3 basic sections. One's about the past, and we talk a lot about the historical reasons for these things. I mean, there's a reason why there's such a low tax payment in Puerto Rico. There's a history about it, and we talk about that. And we also talk about, some of the things with zoning, right? I mean, this is the only place in the world where wealthy people are literally live side by side with people who are on workforce housing.
Right.
And there was a reason for that, and it was done to create a more harmonious island. I mean, if we're all going to live on this island, we all should be able to get along. And so what's great is, like, when part of my passion is to be able to make whoever comes after me's life a little easier. I hit my head against the wall when I first came here. My first 7 years, the joke in my office was, we just need to move Adam further away from everybody, because I kept screaming on the phone every day because things were not getting done. So my office every Monday just kept seeing, I got literally put into a corner in the office by year 1. And it was just because I didn't get it. I didn't understand that it was about being with the culture, learning the subtleties of each culture, and working within that framework. Now, I was 25 years old. I didn't have the experience that you have. Today, if I could do it again, I would say read the book. It's going to save you a lot of headaches, and kind of figure out the best way. Progress isn't necessarily a rocket ship. It could be little by little, right?
We talked a little bit about that earlier, about the difficulty of finishing projects, and I mentioned our company. We just are kind of beating our face against the wall until we finish things again and again. But something else that you just said kind of resonates with me and the group that we've been with this week, and that is this sort of legacy play that at least at PR Consultants and some of the other groups here have learned to embrace, right? Like, so we're doing projects with people that have had this land in their family for sometimes hundreds of years, or at least decades. And so you build relationships with them in order to hopefully build something that they can be proud of. Even though they've sold you a property, this legacy is important. And I think these relationships are important. And this is new for me in Puerto Rico, as I've spent 25 years at the foreclosure sales where I never once dealt with a seller, right? If the deal was good enough, I bought it. It was very non-emotional. Here we've got these projects where we're partnered with the older generation, and we kind of have these relationships, and it's brand new. It's a really wonderful thing. It's always nice when you go where God wants you to be. And so I think for myself and my business partner, we've been able to grow because of, someone calls it Relationship Island here, but because of the change that has been necessary and facilitated by Puerto Rico, because it really is a relationship island, and we want to embrace that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've done how many projects so far?
We're at about 100. We're maybe at 90 something or 105, somewhere in that. And some of them are small and some of them are larger.
Sure.
And yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, you've really gotten into the island and you figured out kind of, how it works. And for me, I wish I would have had some group like yourself to be able to join up when I first arrived here, because we kind of had to learn it on our own. And and I think that's really important. I mean, I think some of the things you said about using locals, relationships first. I mean, at the end of the day, in Puerto Rico, I always joke I need to have 3 lunches and a dinner before I'm going to even begin to talk about business.
Right.
And so now I'm based in Miami. And when I first arrived in Miami, I was like expecting, lunch and dinner, and people were sending me over contracts right away, just 10 minutes on the phone.
Yep.
And it was very shocking. It was like, oh, like they trust me now, and so obviously that's not the way it works in Puerto Rico. And so if you're going to come here, at least enjoy that process, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, I think so. That's been a big learning experience for us, at least.
Yeah, and so cool. The book is called Why Puerto Rico Now?
Yeah.
And so really the question, the title of the book is like, why now? And I always get asked that, is this the time to come to Puerto Rico? I heard that Puerto Rico has had financial problems, blah, 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 inflation. And I really wrote the book because I think the time is now for Puerto Rico. We're living really at a change where, as of March 15, 2022, the government said we're now officially out of bankruptcy. Bonds are being repaid, about $30 billion of it. The fiscal board has submitted a balanced budget, so there's now very, very strong movement towards fiscal responsibility. And real estate has nowhere to go but up. I mean, this is an island that lost 500,000 people, and now they're coming back. I mean, just yesterday there was this a doctorate from MIT, young man David Miranda, who's coming back to Puerto Rico, wants to launch his own company. So we're seeing people come back and back because they love it, right?
Yeah. Right as we arrived on the island, the massive amount of talent that is here and the willingness to collaborate. So very different than Miami, I think. Very different than Orlando, Florida, where I'm from. We were friends with our competitors, but we were still competitors. Here we're friends with the people that we're in business with, and there's this willingness to collaborate. There's a massive talent pool here. And like you said, with like the guy David coming back to the island, I think for the first time in more than a decade, you have Puerto Rico's talent coming back to the island. And it's because they see that finally there's more kind of expectation that they can make it here. So I think that 10 years ago, the talent pool was leaving because there was an expectation that what are you going to do here? It's so it's a really special time and place. I've said this to other people. I believe that a few decades from now, people will look back on Puerto Rico at this particular time in space and go, I can't believe all of those really sharp people were there, and Robbie Krager had him at his house for breakfast.
Follow Robbie. Follow Robbie.
Robbie had all of these sharp people come over to his house for breakfast, and hopefully they create stuff, and we get to witness it. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. You've got about $80 billion of relief aid from HUD, FEMA, all the other federal programs that are coming into the island. This will be the first year of positive economic growth, 1.6%. Positive economic growth, which we have not had in over 15 years. Now, that might not seem like a big number, but if you've been negative for 15 years, that's a huge number, right? And that number is only expected to go in the next couple of years, but up. So we've got tourism that's breaking all records. Discover Puerto Rico's done an amazing job. Invest Puerto Rico's done an incredible job bringing investors. So the metrics are all just starting to hit. And so from my perspective, what I wanted people to realize is that Puerto Rico is ready for change, right? It's when I lived here, there were a bunch of families that controlled and ran everything. The economy was very, very fixed. There was not a lot of movement for change. The entrenched power, so to speak, liked how things were.
Right.
That's now all a new thing. And so with blockchain and Bitcoin, we've had those unexpected consequences of Act 2022, which is now Act 60, which was meant to bring people back to the island. But who would have ever thought that we would have brought all these really smart people back.
Yeah.
And that was not intended, and that has created this new class of people. I mean, we were having some conversations yesterday about blockchain and Bitcoin that just blew my mind. And so what we see is that Puerto Rico is at the cutting edge of this revolution.
Yeah.
And potentially this is going to lead to new sources of revenue that we can't even think about today.
Yeah, it's certainly going to lead to a leapfrog of technology. It's looking like, and I think you spoke about this maybe yesterday, liquidity is really kind of going to be a thing here for the first time in maybe a decade and a half. So there are just some massive positive things happening on the island. And we sort of started a conversation yesterday a little bit based around, my feeling is that we're a bit insulated from the goings on in the States. And even though times are a little bit crazy with inflation and markets are unsure there, if you look around the island here, things are booming. It's a really on fire. Like, restaurants are packed, businesses are starting, and it's a good time to be in Puerto Rico. I think that's what the book is about, right? It's
I mean,
Puerto
we've
Rico
had
now.
price per square feet, which historically average beachfront was between $300 and $400. We now have price per square feet that are over $1,000.
Yeah.
$1,500 price per square feet. So you've got some
like
serious
San Francisco.
appreciation. Yeah, it's out of control in a very positive way, right? Because now a lot of the families that for 15 years were having their assets depreciate have now been able to come back, sell some of those, finally cash out. New people coming in are able to take those investments and go even further with it. I mean, I think that this is the beginning of a very, very happy ending story for Puerto Rico.
I love it.
For us to be here and to be able to share this with you guys and see your energy is a good thing, because ultimately the island has this money that it's going to be able to use, and it's going to the electrical authority. I mean, the challenge here has always been the cost of energy, right? Puerto Rico's electricity's fluctuated around 33 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about 3 times the cost of the U.S. And that just affects everything, right? So if your electricity is more expensive, then your food is more expensive, then your housing is more expensive, then everything's more expensive. And Puerto Rico, like you were talking about leapfrogging, it's going to take this antiquated electrical system and it's going green. I mean, it's going renewable, and we're going to have microgrids and a whole bunch of other energy sources that are coming online. And I'm very excited to see what this island can do and how it can compete with that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, kind of the energy and everything?
Well, I mean, that's what you're seeing, wind and solar, and even, again, back to how much talent there is on this island. There's someone here who's going to figure it all out, right? And they're years from now going to point back and go, I can't believe, this guy and this guy and this guy, and they changed the world, right? They changed the world with solar, or they harnessed the waves and they changed the world with the power. That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, I believe that.
So you see Puerto Rico as this being able to innovate, and when we look back at this time, we go, wow, these guys really,
I believe it. I believe that there's enough really brilliant people here that has a realistic chance of being the case, right? Yeah. So probably won't be me that fixes any of the world's problems, but I'll be glad to say, hey, I knew that guy back then.
I'll join you on that one. I'll join you on that one.
Maybe if I'm lucky enough, I'll make a small investment in whatever company it is that this guy's going to start, whoever he is. So
I know while we've talked about all these amazing things that are happening on the island coming out of bankruptcy, and Puerto Rico getting population back, and real estate booming, there are some clouds that are affecting not just Puerto Rico but the world, right? And I think that climate change is one of them. Obviously, when you live on an island and you're surrounded by a lot of water, that's got to be a priority. And so for me, part of the motivation of writing the book on the 5-year anniversary of Hurricane Irma and Maria is to talk about climate change and say, what new approaches can we take to kind of make Puerto Rico stronger? And I think it's really our responsibility today to lead that conversation. I think it's a lot easier to lead the ESG, environmental social governments, than have to be dealing with relief funds and problems with title afterwards.
Right.
And so part of the book was about what new technologies exist, specifically with blockchain, that will bring new revenues to pay for some of those costs. And I think that the Homeowners Association in Puerto Rico, like the rest of the U.S., are underfunded, right? They just don't have the money to do the repairs that are necessary to deal with climate change. And part of the solution that we talk about in the book is the use of blockchain to generate new revenues, specifically for those that contribute. And without getting too technical, you can read the book for the details. I'm not even an absolute expert on the details because a lot of that still has not been invented. But we know that new revenues can be generated through homeowners associations to make improvements. And
improvements to the coastline or improvements to the neighborhood?
Yeah, well, specifically improvements, first of all, to the way that homeowners associations work.
Yeah.
Right? So today, the way they work is a bunch of people who are not being paid, volunteers, in good faith, decide that they're going to help out as long as they can.
Yeah.
And they get together and they plan some Christmas parties, they do some landscaping. They generally don't want to raise additional money because it's their own neighbors and they're certainly not going to fight with their neighbors to raise money. So all the big expenses are kind of usually passed on to the new board. And that's the way we do things. So at the end of the day, we don't have the money necessary to make structural improvements. Structural improvements tend to be the stuff you don't see. Right, so it tends to be waterproofing, infrastructure repair, and it doesn't add any specific value to your curb appeal. So those improvements, that's another reason why those don't get done. So long story short, we end up having structures that are just not prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that with blockchain technology, we can create new ways for buildings to make money themselves and be able to use those revenues for those improvements. And that's something that, with smart contracts where information can also be recorded properly. Part of the challenge that you have with homeowners associations is you might have 50 or 75 or 100 homeowners associations in one building. As a building goes on, that they just keep passing on and they keep changing. And so what happens to the records? Where do those original developer files go? Where are the soil studies that were done 30, 40 years ago?
Well, and in Puerto Rico, they're in a box in somebody's office, right? It's not like we're... I think we missed microfiche here, so we're kind of behind.
And they've got enough mold on them, so by the time you open them up, you don't even want to look at it.
Exactly.
So it's a crazy thing, and I think we can leapfrog a lot of the title registry in Puerto Rico, which is still not where it needs to be. I think using new technologies, we can properly digitalize assets. And we can have them recorded, which is great for everybody because at least now the government knows where the buildings are, where the homes are. We can, when the time is right, properly tax those assets. So it just leads to an all-around healthier society.
And you talk about all that in this book?
I do.
You really got a lot in here.
It's 200 fun-filled packed pages. It's easy to read. I try to keep it as light as possible. There's about 190 sources. So something I wanted to do. The last 25 pages are just links to sources that you can go do the research on your own, figure it out. And again, it's very tough to have a crystal ball on what's going to happen, but I just like to put out concepts and ideas and just have a conversation like you and I are having.
And where can we get the book?
Well, I'm really, really excited to be able to share this with you, Robbie, and everybody else who's interested. It's coming out in September for the 5th anniversary of Hurricane Irma and Maria.
Okay.
If you go to our website, AG&T.com, there's a link, Why Puerto Rico Now. You can pre-register for the book, and it would be my pleasure to start the conversation with them. Well, I've really appreciated the time, and I know your heart's in a great place, and I'd love to give you a first copy of the book. I'll sign it over. So, Robbie, I'm just going to put what I think is really this is all about. In every crisis, there's an opportunity.
Nice.
Yeah. So, thank you so much.
I appreciate that, Adam, very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. This will be in my library, so
thank you.
I love it. Thanks very much.